Troublemaker opens with the main character, Storm, who's a sort of 39-year-old, 40-year-old woman, and she witnesses a really brutal attack in a wooded park. She witnesses a stabbing. But when the police arrive, there's no body, there's no blood, there's no evidence, there's nothing there. And because Storm's younger brother, Arlo, who was a young man with learning disabilities, because he was similarly murdered a couple of years before, the police just assume that Storm is having some kind of, traumatic flashback, and they don't take her as seriously as perhaps they should. And the only person that believes Storm is her neighbour Lena, who, fortunately for the book, happens to be an ex-copper, a former copper. And so as Lena and Storm are working together to try to find out what the hell is going on here, Lena discovers that this brutal stabbing that Storm's witnessed isn't the only unsettling incident that has occurred since her brother died. So the question that the novel tries to answer is, if Storm's telling the truth, if she's a reliable narrator, if she's telling the truth, then what has happened to that victim in the park that she saw so brutally and almost fatally, she assumes, stabbed, and also who is trying their best to make sure that nobody believes her and that she's sort of regarded as this troublemaker, really, who keeps calling the police. And I think, as to your question as to how Storm came about as a character, in the book, she's a runner, or she was a runner. And before her brother was killed, she used to love running in open spaces, in the open countryside. And she was quite fearless, like her name, whether she was living up to her name. She wasn't a timid woman. She was quite bold. But ever since her brother has been killed in that horrible way, it's really changed her outlook on life, and she feels very vulnerable because she thinks, if this could happen to him, it could happen to me when I'm out on my own. And although I'm not a runner, I'm a walker. That's my maiden name as well, funnily enough. But because I'm not a runner, I'm a walker, but I love walking in the open countryside, and right over the road from where I live now is a beautiful big forest. But I don't like going on my own. I always go with my husband because he likes walking too, or with my son and my grandson. And it really pisses me off. I really resent it that I cannot, or feel too vulnerable to go walking on my own. I mean, I know lots of women do, or if you have a dog, they might, but I just feel vulnerable. And I felt resentful. And so I wanted some of that sort of feeling of vulnerability to come across in Storm, that she's living her life in the shadows, really, always looking over her shoulder, which I think that's the life of a crime writer. I'm a catastrophizer. I'm always looking at things and thinking, oh my God, what's going on in that lockup? I hope there's no one chained up in there, crazy things. But that's the way my mind works. So I guess that's where she started. And also, she's grieving because she really misses her younger brother. And he was, as I say, he had learning disabilities. She felt responsible for him. She loved him. And although I didn't set out to write about grief, I've had a lot of grief in my life in the last few years. My dad died a couple of years ago. My stepson sadly died. He was an alcoholic, and he died last year. And then my mum's died a few weeks ago. I mean, obviously, the book was well and truly done by then. But I guess grief, what's going on in your life, it does percolate into your fiction, doesn't it? Even if you don't intend it to, it finds its way in. So I think the fact that Storm was grieving and the impact that grief has on her and on her decisions came from what had been going on in my own life. I guess it is cathartic. Some people do use writing as therapy. I don't tend to, but it probably does help. I mean, sometimes I think you're right. I don't write about actual facts from my life, but I will try to use the emotions, those sort of universal emotions that we all feel, and I try to make them as authentic as possible. But I am, like many writers, I think, I try to analyze my emotions in order to improve my craft. So, for example, and that really helps me stop feeling them. So, for example, if I'm feeling very regretful about something, we have those periods of our life where we're regretting things, either regretting things that we did or more usually things that we didn't do, routes that we didn't take. And so when I'm feeling like that, I sometimes write down what regret or whatever the emotion is actually feels like on a visceral level. So I remember finding in my notes app on my phone, sort of regret feels like a deep, hollow ache, and I sort of write how it feels. And then by the time I've tried to analyze how it feels physically, I'm not feeling regretful anymore. So that really helps me. So I guess it is a bit like therapy, isn't it? That's true. I love writing the villains. I absolutely do, because obviously nobody is completely good or bad. And even the most sort of heinous of villains, we've got to find something about them that we can, on one level, empathize with. Maybe it's their background or the horrible childhood they've had, or various things. Even the worst people are, they have some redeeming features, hopefully. I loved writing because in my novels, I tend to have sort of unknown narrators in sort of italics, sort of dotted throughout the book. And in the rumour, it was the child killer, it was Sally McGowan. And I really enjoyed writing those. But I particularly enjoyed writing, and my last book was called The Other Tenant. And there was a rather horrible internet troll in there. And I hate these people online who, say these horrible, hateful comments. They're odious people, aren't they? And I can't ever imagine doing anything like that, because I like to think I'm a very nice person. I would hate to offend anybody. And yet, when I started writing from the point of view of this horrible, hideous internet troll, my God, did I enjoy those writing sessions. What does that say about me? I don't know. I think maybe it gives you the chance to occupy another headspace that you would never dream of occupying yourself. So being a writer allows you to live I never know how to pronounce that, vicariously through another character. And so you're also exploring your shadow side, because we all have those nasty thoughts, don't we? I mean, I can be judgmental as hell in my head and say some ghastly things that I would never dream of saying out loud. So maybe writing gives us that chance to do that. And that's why we do enjoy writing those villains. And of course, nice people are boring, aren't they? They're boring. If you're just nice, you're boring, aren't you, really?